Hello, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started, so go ahead and please take your seat. I don't think they heard me.
Bang your gavel
Try it again.
couple of times.
Hello, everyone. Let's go ahead and take our seats. We're going to go ahead and get started. Yeah. Come on, guys, let's move.
Did you see that as soon as Weinstein got convicted yesterday, he didn't need a walker anymore?
Yeah,
That was an amazing recovery.
Went straight to the hospital.
Must got a shot.
After his conviction, he had like heart palpitations and went to the hospital.
I can't be responsible for what's
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Tuesday, February 25th, 2020 Board of County Commissioners Business Meeting. Would you please all stand and join us in the pledge? And Mr. Larry Noble, would you start us out in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Boy, I think that's the most raucous crowd we've had so far this year. Mr. Ingles, we have certification of our agenda today.
We do, Mr. Chair. My office has reviewed all items on today's agenda, and they all meet legal approval.
Do any commissioners have any disclosures for any item on our agenda?
I have none, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
And I've done, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
And I have none. And our first order of business is a very special order of business today, and I'm going to call Sheriff Spurlock to the lectern.
Thank you, commissioners and county manager and the county attorney. Thanks for allowing us to have an opportunity. And I did look back, and I can see why. I have been in some planning meetings before that were a little ruckusy, using your term. But all of those people that were causing problems work for Larry, so we'll get to that in a minute. So that's probably why they were a little out of control. But thank you for giving us a few minutes to recognize Lieutenant Larry Noble for his 45 years of service to the citizens of Douglas County and working at the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. That's an incredible feat. We were talking about it. We make some jokes. He can't bend his arm very well because all the hash marks that he's got up his sleeve. But there are a couple other people, for sure. One, Bruce Fosdick wants to come up and say a few things and recognize Sheriff or Marshall Weaver, Larry Noble sheriff for a long time. Marshall Weaver's here, and he said he really wouldn't know what to say to Larry because of, they're about the same age in the business. So, but I just want to say a couple things to kind of put everything into perspective. When Larry Noble started with the Douglas County Sheriff's Office in 1975, there was one light in Douglas County, one flashing red light, and it was at 5th and Wilcox Street. Okay. Highlands Ranch might have been a thought by somebody that wanted to sell a bunch of land, but they were still not even putting anything to paper yet. Parker, I believe, they were a city, but they were not incorporated yet. They were incorporated city, but we did all the services for them. And then you had Castle Rock. That was it. 85, you knew you were getting close to Denver when you saw the big lights of the big lift. And you knew you were getting close to Denver, but you're still in the heart of Douglas County. Two of the major subdivisions that were in Douglas County on the north side was Surrey Ridge and Acres Green. And Acres Green was a young subdivision back in 1975. And I got the pleasure of meeting Larry in 1980 when I started, and we've had the opportunity to work a number of areas together. He is the one person that I have been able to tell all of the other staff that have come up in the sheriff's office. Larry and I never worked assignments together, as far as I can remember. That's a long time for you to remember too, Larry, sorry. But we worked in a lot of divisions together, but I don't think we ever worked the same assignment. He might have been on one side and I was on the other side of the week or whatever. But I remember Larry was the king of the timesheets. None of these other people behind us will understand this. Maybe the undersheriff. But when we had 40 employees, we thought we were hot stuff. When Larry was here, I think we had less than 30 employees under Royal McKinster. We evolved to where we're at today in to Douglas County. And to his credit, Lieutenant Larry Noble has evolved with it. He has worked in all the divisions. He has supervised pretty much all of the major divisions at one time or another at the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. He has been versatile enough for us to move from any division that is necessary where we need a command officer. And he has the, basically the county's life's knowledge of what this county was about in the late 70s and the early 80s. And Bruce Fosdick's going to go up here and talk a little bit about kind of Larry's part of how he helped put this together. And put it to perspective also is when I remember in the early 80s when we were able to beg for a police car from either the Colorado State Patrol or somebody else that was giving one away, and then we had to change the wiring. There was only one guy that we could ask that knew how to do that, and there was Larry Noble. And so he wore a lot of different hats in the late 70s and the early 80s to get Douglas County out of as I say it, the 17th century, and get us into modern policing. And Larry played a major role in that, and I am pleased and honored to be the sheriff that gets to recognize him for 45 years of service in this community. The things that Larry has seen or has participated in those 45 years, most people won't even be able to grasp it because we did things differently. We did everything here in Douglas County for many, many years. And here we are today. Larry is assigned into the detentions division and to one of the most recognized, securest, safest, cleanest, and most technologically sound jails in the state of Colorado. And he's helped us get to that point, and in all the other areas in the sheriff's office. So it is a great pleasure for me. I'm going to hand this to him in just a minute, but I want to call Bruce Fosdick up, who wants to say a few things, because Bruce can put some different perspective to Larry Noble in the early 70s and making it a difference in this county when it was, again, just a teeny little spot on the map in the state of Colorado. So I want to call up Bruce Fosdick real quick if he wanted to come up, and then I'm going to finish out with a couple words.
We've talked, hello, my name is Bruce Fosdick. I'm a local CPA here, and I come from the search and rescue team as well. But I thought I'd go back. We're all talking about Larry being here for 45 years. I knew Larry before he came to the sheriff's office. When Larry first came down here, he was a member of the Arapahoe Rescue Patrol. At age 18, he wanted to come down and see what an ambulance company was all about, which is what I was doing at the time as an EMT and sometime a paramedic. So he came down to Castle Rock and decided he wanted to ride ambulances for a while. And like the sheriff just said, this town was really big at that point in time. There were 800 people in the town. There was one traffic light. And Larry actually had hair when I first met him, a full head of it. And so through those early 70s, like I said, Larry started with the ambulance company in late 73, worked in 74. was a medic, was a driver for the thing, learning all the county. And of course, there was one ambulance that covered all 843 square miles or whatever it was. Most of it was dirt, Crowfoot Valley, all that stuff. So Larry got to see the county in its very earliest stages. At some point in time, the sheriff's office offered him more money than the private ambulance company could pay him. All of $400, if I remember, a month, something like that was his starting pay. So he went over to the sheriff's office as a dispatcher in the early 70s, and we watched as he kind of went through everything over the years, all the different divisions. I got to meet him not on my favorable terms when he worked for the Civil Process Division. He liked to come visit me with little surprises every now and then, not my favorite trips, but like I said, he stayed good to the end. The last couple of years, Larry's come back on board in search and rescue. He came back on as the sheriff's representative for Douglas County Search and Rescue Team for about the last 5-6 years, where he sits as a board member representing the sheriff. Usually after hours, he works all day and then comes up on his way home and spends 5 or 6 more hours yelling about who's going to pay the $25 bill that we have and those sort of things. So I think I've seen Larry, like I said, evolve from a very young man who probably didn't even know what the world was all about. I knew him in high school because I knew his brothers and sisters. But like I said, he came on to work down here in the ambulance business and then became a sheriff's deputy. So I would say I've known this young man for about the last 50 years. So I'd like to thank my opportunity to thank him for all the days of service and let you go on with your stuff. But Larry, thank you for all your work with Douglas County.
I again beg your indulgence about going down memory alley, because I forgot that you were a dispatcher also. I started in 1980 as a dispatcher, and when Larry was putting the radios together, again, in our comm center, which was in the jail. And I do recall now that he started as a dispatcher, so he knew how to do it better than anyone else that was in there because he had done it before and he had built all of the equipment. And when you started there and you're like, who is this guy? And of course, by that time, he'd been around longer than most people again, so you never questioned anything he had to do. And he also had the ability to unplug your equipment and not have you put it back together again. I do recall that when we moved from 355, or actually from the Coma Locksmith to 355, when 355 Wilcox was first built in 79 and 80. So that's a good remembrance there also, Bruce. I think it's appropriate to have Larry come up and say a few things because here's a guy who, again, has served this community so well and for so long and is still continuing to do it. It is a pleasure to be a part of that, and I'm thankful that he is still here and is still willing to give his commitment to the county. I'm going to give him this. I'm going to give this to him and then have Larry come up here and then say a few things. But this is a packet just on behalf of the commissioners. I know they have something as well, but on behalf of the Douglas County Commissioners, give you a packet here for your service for 45 years. No one has ever got one of those stickers, by the way, okay? They made one printing, and it was just for you, 45 years of service. So 45 years of service, Larry. Thanks, buddy, man.
Wow, 45 years. I never would have dreamed. Never, ever, ever would have dreamed 45 years. But Douglas County has been real good to me. It's been a family to me, very tight family. Lance, worked with you for many years, giving me and the sheriff's office legal advice. Visited this man a lot in his office. I really appreciated what you did for me. And County Commissioner, I thank you for what you do for the sheriff's office, what you do for the citizens. All right. Turn it on. It's not on. Okay, it turned on. All right, I think it's working. Thank you for the commissioners for what you do to the sheriff's office, what you do to the citizens, and what you have done to me personally. I do appreciate that. And Doug, it's been many years working with you too. I appreciate your support as well. All right, thank you very much. As Tony was saying, when I came to work here, working for Royal McKinster's second term, I worked two sheriff's terms with Royal McKinster. There were 14 employees at the sheriff's office, and that included the sheriff. So it has certainly changed a lot since then. We used to get our blue pants over at High's Western, which of course is no longer in business. And then we had the French blue shirts like State Patrol had. And we had Stetson hats as well. And I had a Stetson hat that I proudly wore. It's the first cowboy hat I ever wore, and I loved it. So things have changed a lot in the county. And it's going to be tough to go, but maybe 1 year or less is what I can only give. Okay, 1 year more or less. Keith has been trying to encourage me. Every time I come in every day, he wants to know when I'm hanging it up. And I'm like, Keith, I'm still here because I love you and I want to work with you. So you're going to have to go first, Keith. Okay. So again, thanks everybody. A lot of changes I've seen in the county, and I appreciate everybody's support over the years. I appreciate everybody coming today, and hopefully I'll see you again at my retirement ceremony, unless you leave first. So, all right. Thank you very much.
Sheriff Spurlock, was Marshal Weaver going to say a few words?
I offered the good marshal the opportunity. Here he comes.
Okay.
Politician, if you're going to speak, you know you're going to get a yeah, right? Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Board of County Commissioners. It's a pleasure and honor to be here on a special day. The sheriff pretty much covered everything. First of all, Dave Weaver, former Douglas County Sheriff and a resident of unincorporated Douglas County. Keep your taxes low. I do appreciate that. So let me talk about Larry Noble just for 1 second. As you see so much of my gray hair, Larry was my boss way back in the day. And for many of you that remember the Franklin Planners, remember though? Remember that? Everybody's like, what is he talking about? Well, Franklin Planner came out with this like digest, how to track your life and what you're going to do. After 3.5 hours of sitting in, I think, the patrol room with Larry, I'm fully aware of how that book now works. I still have all like 12 or 13 of them to this day, and I go back and reflect upon a lot of memories. But it's been great. It's been an honor and a privilege working with Larry. But I think if you look at it, if I put my commissioner hat on for a second, looking back, as the sheriff talked about the control center, the dispatch center that we had back in the day, you think about a population of around 5,000 people we had in the county. Larry literally wired that center. It was no one else but he that put that center together, that was keeping the police and fire notified of these 911 calls. That was his doing. Saved the county an enormous amount of money back in those days. Throughout his career, he maintained that relationship, taking care of his fellow officers and firefighters. As he went on, there's two mandates that the sheriff has truly, and that's running a jail and a civil process. For as long as I can remember, Larry ran that civil department without any issues, because that is one job that I know for a fact can take money personally out of the sheriff's pocket. So as former sheriff, thank you very much. I did not lose any money. Be very thankful, Tony. And with that, then looking at your jail, taking care of those detainees that we've had over the years, hundreds and hundreds of people that have committed numerous crimes in this county, that he's been there as a commander, taking care, again, of the citizens of Douglas County. You think about 45 years, how fast time has gone. I really didn't have a driver's license when Larry started, by a couple of years. But when you look at the history, he is probably Father Time when it comes to looking at He served across the street when that facility was burnt to the ground. He was taking those inmates across the street to B&B Cafe and having them fed and taking care of them. He helped with the construction of the new facility at 355 South Wilcox. From there, he helped build the facility where we're at now at 4000 Justice Way. You look at the legacy that he has and the legacy that he'll have when he does retire someday. I've already offered him a job as soon as he retires. Come down to the U.S. Marshals. Happy to help you and have you aboard. But as a remarkable man and the dedication and the service that he has provided this county is second to none. So once again, I just say give Larry Noble a round of applause. One heck of a guy. Thank you, sir, for your service.
Larry, thank you for indulging all that torture you've gone through so far, but I know the commissioners like to say a few words too, and then we have a special gift for you.
So Larry, I remember you. When I first applied, let's just talk a little bit about how law enforcement has changed. When I first applied for law enforcement jobs in 1975, I went to the State Patrol. I could not apply to become a trooper because they didn't accept women officers. That's how much time has changed. I started working for Arapahoe Sheriff in 1977. Then I went to State Patrol in 1977 as a dispatcher, where many of us in law enforcement started. Then I was transferred to Douglas County in 1984. One stoplight at 83, it was 86 and Wilcox then. And our paths crossed many times in the time I was here in Douglas County. I think when I got here, Castle Rock had 8,000 people. So I can't even imagine the changes that happened that you knew for the 9 years before I got here. And I remember when Douglas County didn't have many cars and you were coming to State Patrol to see if we had cars for you. Remember those days, Tony? So we all worked together then and we all work together now, which I think is the trademark of what has made Douglas County successful over the years, is that we've always all worked together. So it was always a pleasure when I had the opportunity to work with you. So thank you for your service.
Well, Lieutenant, this is an incredible honor to be before you today. I think of that for many reasons. And first of all, I want to thank the sheriff, the undersheriff, Marshal Weaver, all of our wonderful law enforcement family. It's nice for so many of us to be here together to celebrate you. But this is a special honor to me because we're celebrating 45 years, and I just celebrated my 44th birthday last month. So when you were coming in and beginning to build this wonderful community, only a year later in 1976, a young man who would eventually have the opportunity to serve this community would be born not too far away. You know, it's really incredible to hear all these stories because it reminds me so much of what we always hear across the state. Oh, Douglas County, that's Mayberry. You know, everybody knows each other, people get along, people care about each other. You know, we've gone from a community of, like you said, 800 people to now 368,000. And to keep that spirit of Mayberry and goodness alive is really attributable to your service, sir, and the service of all the people in this room. And I stand here, but truly I always say I stand on the shoulder of giants, and you are a giant in this profession and in this community. So thank you for your service.
I'm going to ask if County Manager Doug DeBoer or Attorney Lance Ingalls when I say something, because certainly if it's something just doesn't only happens once every 45 years.
Yeah, I don't mind saying a little. Larry, I've always appreciated working with you. You have always been respectful of my time, and I hope I've been in turn respectful of yours, but I've always appreciated that you always think through issues quite a bit before you call, and then we can always have an interesting discussion. Sometimes you're well ahead of me in the discussion, but I've always appreciated the way we've worked together and that you've worked with my office. It's been a pleasure. I'm in my 20th year now. I'm approaching my 20th anniversary. I'm not even halfway to what you've done and what you've done for the county and for the citizens. So thank you. Thank you for the ability to work together, but also thank you for what you've done for the county.
I was wondering, Larry, would you mind, I see you have some family here. Would you take a moment and introduce us?
Sure. This is my wife, Linda. With me for a very long time.
42 years.
And my daughter, Christy. And with her is my grandson, Jace. And this is my son, Justin. And my oldest grandson, Elijah. Smile.
Do you guys want to tell us the real story behind this legend? Anything you guys want to say?
Not if I want to go home.
Lieutenant, I've been fortunate to be able to say the last words and, a little speechless to some degree. And I'm just thinking through that you can probably name all the sheriffs. You may be able to name most of the commissioners served with. But what I think biggest impact is I see that I'm amazed to think the number of civilian and commissioned Douglas County Sheriff Office employees that you have had contact with and you have mentored, and you still do. And really to have one of the finest departments in the state and the nation, and a lot of that rest on your shoulders, that just is so impactful for us to understand that. But Larry, you're a very humble man, and I think we're all very grateful that we can have somebody that stays 45 years, which says a lot. Now, and a lot of times when we do these employee appreciations, it's 10, 15, maybe even 20, and we tell them, you know what, we hope you stay for another 20 years. Well, Larry, we'd be that fortunate to have you another 45 years. Larry, we'd like to present a little bit to you, and should we grab a couple of pictures down below? We should do that too. Present this to you, Larry, on behalf of the Douglas County employees and all of that card. And there's a gift card in there, and I'll tell you, it is not to Dunkin' Donuts. We did some research, and I think you'll appreciate that gift card. Something we've never done, but you are certainly unique in all respects. Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone, for being here. It's just so impressive to come in and see the brass, but to see the respect given for Mr. Larry Noble. It's really an honor. So thank you, everyone, for being here for us. Now we move on to our next agenda item is number 2. And I will add, if there's anyone who wants to leave now, we certainly understand. We'll take a moment for you to dismiss.
Thank you, everyone. You.
Right, move on to item number 2, our citizens' comment, organization comment. If there's anyone in the audience who'd like to address the board regarding any issue, any item, but we ask that it not be an item that is either on our consent or our regular agenda. Would you please come forward? Seeing no one, we will go on to item number 3 of our consent agenda. And I'll ask if there's anyone in the audience who'd like to address the board regarding any item on our agenda, consent agenda, item A through T. Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the board for any discussion on any of the items and/or a motion.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion to approve the requests in all items A through T of the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda passes. Now we move on to item number 4, our regular agenda item. This is a funding agreement between Douglas County and Lutheran High School in the amount of $134,351 for school safety and protection and mental health services. Presenting for staff, Tina Dill.
Tina Dill, representing Community Development. The request before you today is to approve the School Safety and Protection and Mental Health Services Funding Agreement between Douglas County and the Lutheran High School. On May 13th, 2019, the Board of County Commissioners authorized $10 million to improve the physical safety and provide mental health services for Douglas County school children, teachers, and staff. Funding priorities were established, a competitive grant process was developed, and the applications submitted were evaluated. The Board of County Commissioners awarded $134,351 through this proposed funding agreement to Lutheran High School. Staff recommends that the Board of County Commissioners approve the funding agreement between Douglas County and the Lutheran High School as it complies with all of the county approval standards and the procedural guidelines. This concludes my presentation today, and staff is available to answer any questions you might have. Dan Gerke, the Executive Director of Lutheran High School, is here today in case you have any questions or he would like to speak to the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Any questions for staff?
I have none at this point.
And I have none.
Thank you, and I have none. Mr. Gerke, would you like to address the board? And if you would state your name, your spelling of your last name, and your address for the record, please.
My name's Dan Gerke. Last name is Gehrke. I'm the Executive Director at Lutheran High School, 11249 Newland Gulch Boulevard, Parker, Colorado. I'll be brief. Lutheran High School, I've served in my role for 9 years, and Lutheran High School's gone from 175 students to what I think will be 800 probably a year from now. I believe this to be the second largest private high school in Douglas County School District and probably the 4th largest private school overall in Douglas County, probably the 3rd or 4th largest private high school in the state of Colorado. So we've experienced tremendous growth that you have as well. Private school is a difficult business. It's a razor-thin margin. The swing of 10 to 15 students in either direction can make or break a school year sometimes financially. So I'm just here to say thanks. I get it. The public funding in private schools is fraught with pitfalls and disagreements and things like that. I understand that. But I have certainly appreciated the amount of respect that our school has been treated with from the Douglas County Board, as well as the Douglas County School District, starting with meetings during the summer that you had with us, and just the level of communication and the level of coming over and making suggestions and working with us. And I just want to tell you that that amount of money, which are immediate physical upgrades in our building, is no small deal to us, both financially and for the safety of our students. I have a clientele that expects and demands a high level of school safety. And it's not just because of our clientele, it's also because they live in Douglas County. And the example that you've set with the policies and procedures that exist at the Douglas County School District level can be mirrored. And it's very easy for us to say to families, look, our safety and security plan and the things that we do mirror Douglas County's, and everybody takes a big sigh of relief. And so I wanted to thank you for that as well.
Ms. Gerke, thank you very much. Any questions or comments for Ms. Gerke?
I'll just make a comment, Mr. Gerke. You were very accommodating when we came out in October and looked at your windows, and I really got a sense for the amount of pride you had in your school and your kids. So thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Gerke, I remember one of the first meetings we had where we sat around and had a conversation related to issues that the private schools were having. And I just want to thank you for your leadership in our community and all that you're doing to keep your kids safe. You're a Lutheran school, and there's a very important case, Trinity Lutheran versus Comer. And just like when you have an issue at your school and you called the sheriff's office, who is just here, with a 911 emergency, they would have to show up. And in the same way, under Lutheran versus Comer, we don't have any other legal right than to make sure that you are funded as well and to make sure that your kids are safe and secure because your students are Douglas County citizens and residents here. So thank you for all that you do, and we're looking forward to that continued partnership. Hopefully you'll invite us out for when things are done.
You bet, absolutely.
All right, thanks.
Ms. Gerke, I would just say thank you for your comments, and it's a very enlightening, I think, for us to hear this. I really believe once we had done this, I believe this is the 6th contract we've signed now, and we continue to hear these personal stories, and I don't think we realize the impact that this was going to make, but we really appreciate you displaying that to us, the impact that it makes to you and your students and the parents. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. At this time, I'll ask if there's anyone in the audience like to address the board regarding this contract. Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the board for any discussion and or action.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve a funding agreement between Douglas County and Lutheran High School in the amount of $134,351 for school safety and protection and mental health services.
Second.
We have a first and a second. No further discussion. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Congratulations and thank you, Mr. Gerke. Our next item on the agenda is construction contract to Villalobos Concrete, Inc. for Jamaica Street and Meridian Boulevard intersection improvements. This is a project in amount of $3,803,641.50. Project file CI 2017-022. Presenting for staff, Neil Sarno.
Thank you, Commissioners. Neil Sarno, representing engineering staff. I'd like to just provide a brief summary of the project itself. The Jamaica Street and Meridian Boulevard intersection improvements project consists of a construction of a new intersection with concrete pavement, curb and gutter, sidewalk, as well as install of new and temporary traffic signal equipment. There will also be removals, drainage items, subgrade preparation, minor asphalt work, signs, striping, and erosion control. This intersection and associated roadways are critical components of our regional transportation network, and the proposed project will help improve safety and mobility while reducing traffic congestion now and in the future. 6 bids for the above-mentioned project were opened and read on Tuesday, January 28, 2020 at 2 p.m. After a mandatory and extensive due diligence investigation by engineering staff, it was determined that Villalobos Concrete, Inc. bid is the lowest responsive and responsible bidder who will serve the best interests of the county for this project. And with that, I am more than happy to address any questions the commissioners may have about the project. Thank you.
Questions for staff?
I have none, thank you.
And I have none. Thank you.
And Neil, I'm just going to ask for your comment on Villalobos. How do you consider the work that they have done for us so far?
Villalobos has been actually a very responsive contractor for the county. Many of the projects that Villalobos has done within the county have been through our pavement management program with Gerald Roberts, Dan Roberts, and through that department. However, even in capital improvements projects, we've worked with Villalobos, and they've been incredibly responsive. They've been on time, and we have them as one of the better contractors in terms of concrete pavement and the work they're pursuing at this time.
I would certainly echo that.
All
Thank
right.
you, Neil. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
This time, I'll ask if there's anyone in the audience who'd like to address the board regarding this contract. Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the board for any further. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you,
Further
Commissioner.
discussion or questions and/or motion?
Mr. Chair, I have a motion to approve a construction contract to Villalobos Concrete, Inc. for Jamaica Street and Meridian Boulevard intersection improvements project in the amount of $3,803,641.50. Douglas County Project CI 2017-022.
Second.
We have a first and a second. No further discussion. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Brings us to item number C, resolution approving an intergovernment agreement between the Colorado Department of Transportation and Board of County Commissioners. Presenting for staff, Mr. Art Griffith.
Good afternoon. Thanks. So this is an exciting corridor study project. I would say it's the brainchild of the city of Littleton and Arapahoe County that, the 85 corridor has a lot of our residents that use it on a daily basis, and a lot of them are just driving through. So we're on the south end, but this project is a study of the entire corridor from C-470 all the way to Alameda, north of I-25. And it's considered a regional DRCOG project, so we competed at the regional project selection process at DRCOG in the last TIP process, and the project was selected. It's a $3 million project. 50% of the funding is coming from DRCOG, recognizing its regional significance, 25% from CDOT. The three counties, Arapahoe, Douglas, and City and County of Denver, are contributing $150,000 each, which makes our share about 5%. Littleton, $189,000, Inglewood, $62,000, and Sheridan, $48,000. So it was kind of looked at the population, and it was really exciting that we could all get together and look at this improvement, operational, safety, capacity, transit, and other improvements along the corridor. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. The project's just starting, so I can't actually tell you too much detail about that. We've had one kickoff meeting, and that's all that's occurred so far.
Very good. Thank you, Art. Questions for Art?
This really isn't a question, this is a comment. I think that you just listed off several different jurisdictions that are involved in this project. And this, once again, as I highlighted earlier in this meeting, is the reason that Douglas County is so successful, is because we're not siloed. We work with others, and we have found that by working with others and partnering with others, we all end up with a better project. So thank you for all the work you do, for all the partnerships representing our organization, Art.
We had the opportunity to recognize a champion in law enforcement, and you are certainly a champion in transportation infrastructure, among many other things, Art. So we just are so appreciative for your service and for bringing those traffic solutions to Douglas County, and certainly through this linkage study.
Well, I'm excited to look forward for 45 years, so I've only got like 19 or 20 to go, or 25, so I'll have to figure that out.
We want 45 out of you.
That's crazy.
I thought you were better.
Crazy commitment. That's incredible.
I thought you were better at math than that. You're scaring me.
No. Just emotional.
I will echo those same comments. As you know, and I like to say this, you've taught me more than I've even ever forgot. I think you've forgot more than even I know. So you just amaze me, because Commissioner Thomas made a very good point. It's the partnerships. But it really doesn't happen in every jurisdiction like it happens here. And you know why? That's because Art Griffith and the great engineering department all the way around. So thank you for bringing this forward. Really appreciate it. And to see the impact on Douglas County residents, because you think, well, there's only not even a mile that may be in Douglas County, but significant impact to our residents. So really appreciate Art. All right, at this time, I'll ask if there's anyone in the audience like to address the board regarding this application. Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the board for any further discussion, questions, and or action.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the Colorado Department of Transportation and the Board of County Commissioners of the County of Douglas, State of Colorado, regarding cost sharing for a planning and environmental linkage study on US 85 between C470 and I-25 Alameda associated with CDOT, project file 0852-117-23143.
Second.
We have first and second. No further discussion. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Thank you, Art.
I'm gonna hang out here in case Doug goes to other business stuff.
Oh, we have one other item on the agenda. I'm sorry for this. Give you a chance to rest. Now we move on to item D, is 2020 Denver Regional Council of Governments Human Service Transportation Contract in the amount of $137,868, which requires a match. Presenting for staff, Faye Estes.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Faye Estes, representing Community Development. The request before you today is approval of the 2020 Denver Regional Council of Governments, or DRCOG, Human Service Transportation, or HST, contract EX19077 in the amount of $275,736. The purpose of this program is to provide transportation services to vulnerable residents, including veterans, seniors, and low-income residents. The HST funds have no geographical restriction and will provide access to vital resources, medical care, employment, recreation, and contribute to residents' overall quality of life. DRCOG has allocated $1 million in HST funds for 2020, and the 2020 contract reflects the amount requested in the application, which was approved by the Board of County Commissioners on May 28, 2019. Douglas County does not provide transportation services directly. Instead, some subgrantee agreements will be signed with 6 transportation providers to provide 6,387 trips. These funds will be allocated as follows: $62,400 to Aging Resources of Douglas County, $7,468 to Broken Tree, $13,000 to Castle Rock Senior Activity Center, $20,000 to Lyft, $10,000 to the Rock Church, $20,000 to the Rescue, and $5,000 will be allocated to provide coordinated regional trips. $137,868 of required match will be met through RTD local funds, so no additional contribution from the county is required. And the total 2020 program budget is $275,736. It is staff's recommendation that the Board of County Commissioners approve the 2020 DRCOG HST contract EX19077 in the amount of $275,736 as it complies with all federal, state, and county approval standards and policies. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Faye. Questions for Faye?
I have none. Thank you, Faye.
Thank you, Faye. I just have one question, and it's perhaps to provide some clarity for folks that may be watching or in our gallery today. Could you share a little bit for those folks what it might look like for these transportation services to be effectuated by our partners after they receive these grants?
These are just going to expand our services, and we're going to be able to provide more trips for our vulnerable population, and just looking at different demographics that we're able to help with these services. So these will be additional trips on top of the services we already provide.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Faye. And I'll just comment, I think Faye, you and the whole planning department do a great job connecting with DRCOG and figuring out some of the best ways to serve those that need it in Douglas County. And I know we're sometimes the envy of many other counties, but it takes a great staff at both DRCOG and here to be able to make that happen. So thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
This time, I'll open it up for anyone in the audience who'd like to address the board regarding this contract. Seeing no one, bring it back to the board for any further discussion, questions, and/or action.
Mr. Chair, I'll just make one comment at this point. I know several of my constituents who have taken access to these rides. And what's amazing about this is it gives them a sense of freedom, that they're not having to depend on their kids, but they're able to stay in their homes. And so they have really a quality of life that's unmatched. And a lot of these people don't have resources to go into independent or assisted living facilities at this point. And so that's the real beauty of this program, is that it's allowing people to remain independent and self-sufficient. And so that's why I really support these programs and that DRCOG offers these to us. So with that, I'll make a motion to approve the 2020 Denver Regional Council of Governments Human Service Transportation Contract EX 19077 in the amount of $137,868 with a required match of $137,868 for a project total of $275,736.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor state aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes.
Thank you.
Our next item on our agenda is under other business, number 5, and this is a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the Colorado Department of Transportation, the Board of County Commissioners of the County of Douglas, State of Colorado, regarding cost sharing for a safety and operational study of State Highway 83 associated with CDOT project. I'll go ahead and say that. NHPP 0831-123, 23008. Presenting for staff, Art Griffith.
Thank you, Commissioners. Another good partnering opportunity with CDOT. We went to CDOT, I think, 2 years ago, and I think a lot of, from our Sheriff's Department and the public, we heard a lot of safety concerns on State Highway 83 or Parker Road. And this is kind of the outcome of working with CDOT, which is part of a bigger picture where we submitted at the sub-regional level for funding for constructing improvements. And we were selected last fall at the sub-regional for $11.5 million in construction improvements, $5.5 million from DRCOG, $3 million from Douglas County, and $3 million from CDOT. Now that's out in the future, so having common goals, continuing with all the commissioners is important because we'll have to make a decision on actually construction funding in 2 years or so because that money is set aside for 2023. So this is the first step, and the essential focus is from Bayou Gulch Road all the way till the El Paso County line, and it's to select and determine priority safety improvements. Those could be left turn lanes into an open space. I can't remember the Prairie Farms there, but there's a building in there that we need to consider a left turn lane. There's several driveways that cross the double yellow and look at providing opportunities to make left turns at high intersections and then U-turns for people to go back so they don't have to cross the double center left lane because there's increased volume of traffic in each direction. So this is essentially how we work to making and coming up with construction projects. There's probably significantly more than $11 million worth of improvements. This is a good project to continue to look at highway safety improvement project monies, HSIP, as grants in the future. And so encourage you to approve this study getting underway, and open for any questions.
Questions for Art?
I have none, thank you.
And I have none, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
And I have none. Just to comment, Art, thank you for bringing this forward because it's a very key thing and a very busy part of our county. No doubt with the gap, it's really added to that. So thank you for bringing this forward. Appreciate it. This time, I'll bring this to the public. Anyone in the audience like to address the board regarding this resolution, please come forward. Seeing no one, bring it back to the board for any further discussion, questions, and or motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between, intergovernmental agreement between the Colorado Department of Transportation and the Board of County Commissioners of the County of Douglas, State of Colorado, regarding cost sharing for a safety and operational study of State Highway 83 associated with CDOT project NHPP 0831-123-23008.
Second.
We have a first and a second. No further discussion. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. And County Manager to Board, any further business? No further business. County Manager report is enclosed in our packet. And any additional commissioner comments?
I do. Thank you. So we had one school today come and get their contract approved for their funding. Earlier this month, we approved a similar contract for Armadillo Academy. And I just want to say this is really cool that these kids wrote us these thank you notes. And one of these is from a first grader. Now, you know, we all hear how they're not teaching cursive writing anymore. I learned cursive in the 3rd grade. Here's a first grader who wrote this really cool thank you note that just says, "Dear Douglas County Commissioner's Office, thank you for the gift. Thank you. You are helping keep us safe. Sincerely, Dame, on behalf of Armadillo Academy 1st grade class." I mean, is that cool or what? So I just want to point out that we have invested in kids who are already investing in their future. So I just wanted to share these with you. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. And I would add that what you just said about the cursive, because that is, as you see, cursive is how we make our mark, our signature. And that first grader signed his mark. That is quite impressive. Thank you for bringing that forward. Any further additional comments? We are adjourned, and we will reconvene. And if everybody's fine, we'll reconvene in about 3 minutes for 2:30 for our land use and public hearing.